Hey, welcome back, everybody. Hollywood Pizza here, coming at you again with another spoiler video. You know what time it is. And I'm back again with HearSayTTV and HamHawks42. How are you guys doing today?
Oh, doing well.
Gravy, baby. Let's
Oh yeah,
go.
can't
New
wait.
cards.
Oh
Let's
yeah,
get
new
hyped up.
cards. Uh,
I can't wait.
let's tell everyone where to find you again.
My name is HearSayTTV, as you guys already know now. You can find me on Twitch TV/HearSayTTV from Monday to Thursday. Monday, Tuesday, I'm in the daytime at 10 a.m. Atlantic Eastern. If you don't know what Atlantic Eastern is, it's an hour after Eastern. I know it's Canada. Don't tell me. I already know. And on Wednesday, Thursday, I am on at 11 p.m. So yeah, that's where you can find me.
Yeah, and you can find me on Twitch. HamHawks42 is the username, and I am there Monday through Friday, starting at 7 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. The more commonly referred to Eastern Standard Time, yes. And that's we play fun janky decks. If you want to challenge me to build weird janky decks, that's the place to do it. We have a lot of fun on that channel. Also, I have a fun, and actually guys, this is something that I didn't think to mention off stream, so I'm just gonna say it now. Text to speech. I figured out how to enable text to speech for as little as 1 bit. So if you want to come have a little robot say curse words in my stream, that can happen. Anyway,
That sounds very entertaining, actually. I will definitely be down to do that sometime.
I'm definitely gonna be in the channel cursing some words.
Yes.
yeah.
Yes.
Anyway,
Yes.
just
Let's
throwing
go.
that out there. One of the many things I offer. And if you guys want to set something like that up for your streams, let me know. I'd be happy to help you out. Anyway, but yeah, so Hambox42 is on all the places.
Yeah, definitely come hang out with us anytime that we're live. Check out our YouTube content. We all have our own channels and always a lot of fun. A lot of MTG related content, so definitely check that out. So yeah, we got some new cards. We're just gonna literally go ahead and jump right into it here with our first card, which looks like it's potentially part of a cycle. Looks like it's gonna be one for each of the families here. So we have MAESTROS Theater. It's a land. When it actually comes into play, you just outright sacrifice it. When you do, you're gonna search your library for a basic island, swamp, mountain, and put it onto the battlefield tapped, shuffle your library, and gain a life. How do you guys feel about this card?
Yeah, I think it's mana fixing. Like we were talking about it earlier today. We said that it's a evolving wilds. I mean, evolving wilds is already in our format. It's going to be in our format for quite some time. I think that's good. Like finding a basic island, swamp, or mountain, and it gaining a life. I think the gaining life is the thing that I think is fine that I find curious because there are like gain life triggers that's in the format. So maybe like that's what this is supposed to be for, or maybe it's for a card that we haven't quite seen yet. I had kind of have a question about this card. How does it interact? So with cards like Strict Proctor and Yasharn.
This card would just enter the battlefield, and you can't. The trigger would fizzle because you can't finish.
With Strict Proctor, it would fizzle.
Yeah, this would just fizzle.
Yeah,
and then you just have a land that does nothing, or you gain a life, right? And shuffle, right? I think. Actually,
no, because it says when you do, you wouldn't do any of those things.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, you don't get to do anything. Yeah, because of that clause specifically.
Yeah, so in the case of Strict Proctor or in older formats, cards like Hushbringer that stifle those enter the battlefield triggers, yeah, you would just have a blank land that can't tap for mana unless you have something like World Tree or Urborg to give it the ability to tap for mana.
Or you can sacrifice it later.
It'd be bad. It'd be really bad. Yeah.
And I guess what about Yasharn? Does Yasharn stop it?
With Yasharn, if I'm not mistaken, the way the Yasharn is worded, it specifically says that players can't sacrifice permanents to cast spells or activate abilities. And so since this is a triggered ability, it should still work just fine.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, that's actually a good point. Yeah, it is. It comes into play. So yeah, it probably would be treated separately.
Watch out for a Strict Proctor in those sideboards if you're running this card.
Right?
Can you imagine just like you see Proctor, you're like, no.
Yeah,
no.
And Yasharn actually is a great call out because Yasharn stops Evolving Wilds. The Evolving Wild Fabled Passage, because you have to sacrifice it to activate the ability. Whereas with MAESTROS Theater and any of these other ones that we're presumably going to see for the other houses as well, or the other families, it's that triggered ability. So that's it's an interesting distinction.
So fetch land that gets around cards that could stop a fetch land, pretty much.
Kind
Because you
of, yeah.
can't Pithing Needle this card either, right? Like, you can't,
True.
anything that says, like, activate abilities or something, your opponents, like, they can't activate them, then, or, you know, if it happens to you, you do it your opponent, like, at least this card will still actually keep popping off because it doesn't have an activation cost, it's just a triggered ability.
Yeah. At the end of the day, it's going to function in 99% of matches. It's going to function just like Evolving Wilds. It's going to do basically the same thing, but there is a slight difference there. Yeah, I think for limited, this cycle is just going to be rock solid, and I think for constructed, it's probably not going to see much play, if any. Yeah, if we're honest.
Yeah, I could probably agree to that. I think it's just like it is really a great card for limited. It goes well with the other common land cycle that we went over in our video yesterday. Yeah, this just a good common, just a good fixer. So definitely be on the lookout on this if you're drafting or into your sealed pools. Okay, so our next card here. This card, unfortunately, is not in English right now, but we're going to go ahead and read it off to you. So we have 3 colorless, 2 black. Unlicensed Dispatch. Casualty 3. So when you cast this card, you can choose to sacrifice a creature with power 3 or greater. Search your library for a card. Put that card into your hand, then shuffle. So a little bit expensive, I think, for constructed and limited. Limited, I think maybe there's a chance just because, I don't know, getting 2 of your best cards and potentially like having some synergies with the rest of your deck could be good with this.
Yeah, I can't see this being in constructed, but I can see this in EDH 100%.
Yeah,
the reason why I
that's where
don't
it's
see
gonna
it.
be.
Yeah, the reason why I don't see it in constructed right now is because we have cards like Dig Up, and Dig Up is 4 mana.
Dig Up's better too
Yeah.
because it's more flexible, right? Like you can use your first Dig Up to go get a land, fix your hand, smooth your draw, and you know this card's just going to be like 5 mana all the time, so there isn't really too much flexibility. And at the same time, even like having a creature, even though you can build your deck around maybe more having like a 3-power creature, I feel like spending 5 mana to sacrifice one of your best cards feels kind of rough, right? Like I don't want to sacrifice a Trespasser or like the Palvitor Dama de Rosa to it.
Right. I mean, Skyclave Shade is a good call out that we had mentioned previously as a way to enable Casualty 3 really nicely. So that's something. Oh, I think you're right. The one situation, so I can't help but go into Magical Christmas Land scenarios or try to find some upside, some positive.
It's always snowing around you. I get it.
It is. I can't help it. I'm here in Michigan. These things happen. But it's the one thing about it that I think is interesting is that you can tutor up 2 cards. So in a deck that has like a 3-card combo that can win you the game, being able to, spend 5 mana and 1 creature, and trade them in for the 2 combo pieces that you need. Maybe like there may be a situation, but at the end of the day, I think the price is still just a little too high. But
yeah,
that's
sure. I think this is like it's going to be a pretty good limited card because you can just tutor for something. But I really can't see it constructed, especially at 5 mana, because at 5 mana, like in standard, like most games are over by like turn like 6 or 7, right?
Right.
Or sometimes even sooner.
Yeah, and if you think about tutors that are available in standard right now, I mean, the one that comes to my mind is Varagoth. You get a 2/3, a 2/3 Death Toucher for 3 that has Vampiric Tutor on a Boast ability.
Yeah,
it sees no play. Like, and that's a situation where you have to, and I think part of that is, if I'm not mistaken, you have to invest 5 mana to get the tutor, and it does go to the top of the library. You don't draw it, so that's one thing. But it's also recurable though. If Varagoth survives, you can do that multiple times.
Yeah.
So, and that sees 0 play. There are other ones like Covetous Prize from Zendikar. Nobody plays that card. It's a 5-drop that becomes cheaper with based on the number of party members you have, and it's just. Party didn't really pop off and even win in the decks where Party is able to be successful. The card just doesn't fit. It just doesn't do enough, for its cost. And I think Unlicensed Dispatch is going to fall into kind of that same realm. Yeah.
Yeah, it just costs too much, man. I mean, at 4 mana, I don't even think that this card's really that crazy. It kind of just becomes like a weird blue card, right? There's so many 4 mana draw 2s, right? Like inspirations. This just isn't it. I think it just costs too much mana.
Agreed.
All right, and our next card here. So this card actually doesn't have a name yet. I'm actually pretty surprised. So for 2 colorless and a black, casualty 1. So you can sacrifice something. Mill 2, then return a creature card from your graveyard to your hand. So you can...
Oh, this is dig up the body. That's the cards dig up the body, is it not?
Is that what
I
it's
think
called?
that's correct.
Okay,
I think that's
thank
correct.
you. Thank you.
Yeah,
for
the
that.
one site
dig
we're
up the
looking at
body.
doesn't have
Yep,
the
there
name.
we go.
Yep.
Thank
Yeah.
you. So, I mean,
This is strictly worse.
it's a good
corpse
limited
churn.
card because it helps like fuel what you want in your deck, and you potentially can get back just 2 cards. I mean, just getting back 2 creatures in limited is fine. It always seems pretty good in casualty 1.
Corpse churn. Corpse churn does more, and it's 2 mana.
Yeah. And constructed level, there's better cards than this. I think in limited,
Yeah.
I actually kind of like this. I like having just like one of these or something, kind of like a Blood Fountain type card, where Blood Fountain does have like, you know, it's a better card overall, don't get me wrong, but this card, you know, it draws you cards, essentially gets cards back from the graveyard and your sacrifice synergy and your mill synergy. So this card's kind of doing a lot for a common, and like I said, I don't know if I wouldn't mind having just like one of these in my deck, probably, you know, if I'm whatever kind of strategy, the MAESTROS strategy, essentially.
Fair.
Yeah, I think if you can get value off of the sacrifice, if the casualty is going to be a benefit to you, you know, a feature rather than a bug, then I think it's really good. If you're sacrificing Shambling Gas or Eye Twitches to this, then you're going to be in good shape because you're getting value. You're then getting 2 cards out of your graveyard after milling 4. So you're drawing 2 out of your graveyard effectively. I mean, creature cards, but still, like, I don't know. It's interesting. I think 3 mana, like, I wish it cost 2. I really do. It'll be interesting to see how big the casualty, you know, effect of being able to double the spell. Like, let's see. It'll be interesting to see how much power that really has. Because I feel like this is costed pretty conservatively as a result of that specific keyword.
Yeah, definitely. And so our next card here, we actually have a pretty interesting card, I think. Maestro's Ascendency. So we were going over all the Ascendancies pretty much. Excuse me, me and Ham talked about how in Khans of Tarkir there was some old Ascendancies. So essentially the first one we saw was the Broker's Ascendancy. Now we're seeing the Maestro's Ascendancy. So the text on this, blue, black, red mana. Once during each of your turns, you may cast an instant or sorcery spell from your graveyard by sacrificing a creature in addition to paying its other's costs. If a spell cast this way will be put into the graveyard, exile it instead. I mean, this card seems pretty decent though, right? Like I could see this going off.
No, I might be wrong, but I see this card as a trap amongst traps.
Okay, you think this is more like a trap?
Yeah, I think this is a trap. I think it, like, on paper it looks good, but like you're losing your creature and you're losing a spell out of your yard. Like, you get to cast it, but it's gone. So like, isn't like a 2-for-1 against you kind of thing? Like, that's how I kind of feel about it, because you're losing a creature, and I mean, like, and you're in Grixis. So like, what tokens can you make that you don't care about? I don't think there's many tokens that you can make. Like, well, sure, Kiki-Jiki, but I mean, Kiki-Jiki makes tokens, I guess. So like, would you sack that token to cast another spell?
Yeah, depending on how your deck's built. Yeah, you can go recast like your Infernal Grasp or
But I like
Power
this.
Word
This
Kill or
is, I feel
something.
like this is. I think we're living in friggin' Hamhawks' Christmas land here. I just don't see tokens like being a thing in these colors. So you're actually stacking real creatures.
Yeah. No, I can appreciate that. I think it depends on the power of the spells that you're pulling back. I think is really what it comes down to. I think if you sacrifice a 1/1 citizen or something that you don't care about and you recast and invoke despair, you're feeling pretty good.
Expressive
so
Iteration.
We already have Lear though, right?
Exactly. That was going to be my next point. Is in a world where Lear exists, why would you play this?
That's actually like the best point about that card.
That's
Yeah,
it. You're 100% right.
That's like it. Yeah, that's something I think everyone's just gonna realize and remember again. I mean, it's
like, it's an enchantment, so it's harder to get rid of than Lear is, obviously. But I don't know. Maybe, and I said that maybe this. I think I'll bow out of them. Maybe I'm wrong, and this card's actually going to be good. Hint to Kiki-Jiki, because I said that card wasn't going to be good, and now that's all you see over Alchemy. but I just don't. I don't see it. I don't see it.
It's kind of like a weird card
Yeah.
where it's an enchantment, but then it also wants you to play instants and sorceries, but then it
Yeah.
also wants you to play creatures. So you're gonna be in this spot where this card is gonna be in spots where you're like doing nothing, or you have removal spells in your yard, and you're like, man, my 1/1, I really wish I could kill something, but then you're wasting your cards, just like Hearsay's saying. So
Mhm.
I think it really does fit that trap card where maybe it's just trying to do too much at once, and it's just maybe more like an EDH card. Feels more like an EDH card where you can kind of maybe build towards it a lot better.
Mhm.
Yeah, that makes sense.
You have more cards in your deck, you know, like, I don't know.
Yeah, I think if there is a clear benefit to Maestro's Ascendancy over something like Lear, is that it only costs 3. So you can get it in place sooner. It'll be interesting to see if there's any line that people come up with or any kind of sequence that makes that meaningful. Because yeah, I don't know that I see it here. Yeah, I think you're right. I think you're probably right. It's a trap, but at the same time, I love building janky stuff. I'm gonna try it. You know, I'm gonna see if we can make it work.
Let me
But
give you a
yeah,
little jank because I had a thought of like how could it be kind of good. What if you didn't use it for its ability of costing it? What if you were happy to mill it and you use cards like Happily Ever After in Historic?
that's
Because
intriguing.
Happily Ever After says at the beginning of your upkeep, if there are 5 colors among permanents, so one permanent gives you 3 colors,
Yeah.
and you control 6 or more card types. Like getting the card types isn't hard.
No.
It's always getting
Yeah,
the
self
colors.
mill's pretty like easy.
Yeah, so it's always getting the colors of the permanents. So maybe that could happen.
Stitcher
Yeah.
Supplier, like you can kind of mill yourself and keep this card going.
Yeah,
Maybe get your Coxa back, or you can like, I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe it gives
I don't know.
that deck some edge. Just add blue now. I'm
like
not sure.
Yeah.
maybe like I said, like I'm not sure.
Arcanist,
Like well,
you
like
know,
maybe, but
maybe.
maybe.
I guess Arcanist wants to
Yeah.
play Luris though, so you probably wouldn't really want to play this, and that's maybe where this card is fitting into more specific decks. You know?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Well, it's funny too because when we talk about standard, we're like, well, Lear exists, so why would you play this? But then if you go back to historic, it's like, well, Arcanist exists, why would you play this? Or Arcanist,
Mhm.
Luris,
Yeah.
they give you access to your graveyard and just do more with it and do it more consistently. So
Yeah, they're just better cards overall.
hmm yeah,
All
I don't know. I like the idea more than the actual card.
Yeah, I can kind of feel you on that for that card specifically. So our next card here we have Maestros Diabolist. So blue, black, red, a lot of Grixis. We are seeing like
We're seeing the Grixis first.
yeah, no more
Mhm.
hybrids, right? This isn't the
Yeah.
hybrid set. We're seeing like mana calls. I guess we
Yeah.
do have one hybrid card that we're gonna get to later, so there probably are gonna be more. But so far, what we've seen is like hard multicolored. Like this is it.
Mhm.
Mm.
This is what you got. You got to play Maestros or bust, pretty much. So, Death Touch Haste for a 1/4. Whenever this card attacks, if you don't control a devil token, create a tapped and attacking 1/1 red devil creature token. With whenever this creature dies, it deals 1 damage to any target. And this is a vampire warrior. How do we feel about this card?
Well, there's that token we
shout
want to
out
sacrifice.
Is this this token, but also shout out to Adeline.
Yeah.
It's a 1/4. It doesn't have vigilance, but it has death touch and it has haste. So it comes down, it's swinging, it's coming in with a 1/1 with it.
Yeah, it's very similar, I suppose.
Yeah. I don't know how to feel about this card. I like all of its stats. It's a weird card where I feel like maybe we like can potentially undervalue it and then it ends up being really good just because it has 2 decent abilities. It's a cheap enough card. If you get to attack with it, you start to make some value. And if you're not attacking with it, then your opponent probably can attack you. Is this more like a cyborg card, do you think? Or like a main deck card? I don't know.
I think it's a little weird.
It's a little bit
It's a
like
little
kind of like a
weird.
random card, right? More like it's a rare. I mean, it doesn't.
I'm gonna go out and
feels
say
like
it.
uncommon, you know. I don't know.
I think this card is good. I think we need to look at it in its context, because given how much casualty stuff and how many sacrifice triggers there are in this set, like that seems to be a major theme for like multiple colors, and across a couple of different houses now. And so I think, or a couple of different families. So I think the fact that it pumps out a body that gives you upside when it dies and can do so every single turn, it reminds me kind of like Jadar in that regard. Now it does have to attack, but it's got death touch. Your opponent's not going to want to block this thing.
Mm.
So I think that's okay. But being able to just pop out that token and be able to use it to to casualty off the little chat, and what other any of these casualty one cards that have been,
some of the
that
cards we're
going
gonna
around.
get to later. Yeah, we
Yeah,
got some more casualty cards that we're definitely gonna get to.
I think,
So
or even maybe even dig up the body. Like maybe there's benefit there. Like I think in the right deck, Maestro Diabolist as like a 2 of, could be strong. Like could be really strong. Come to think of it though, Jadar the Ghoul color is still around, and that produces those decay tokens, which are also great fodder for that kind of stuff. So
yeah,
maybe
you got
this
all
is
kinds
a
of
pale
cards to
imitation
play,
of
you
that.
know,
Yeah,
like-
there are a lot of options right now.
yeah.
Shout out to the artwork. I like the artwork in there because I keep looking at the devil that they obviously create, and that's the Jund devil, is it not?
The
Like
Jund
that's
Devil?
yeah, like the what's its name? So that it looks like, so in our last we didn't actually go over Henzi, but Henzi Toolbox Torre is a devil rogue. It's Jund. It's one of the Jund commanders from the box sets, the precons. But Henzi is also the devilish valet.
Oh, nice. Okay.
And if you look at the artwork here in this duelist, it's wearing the same clothes. It's red, same devil, and has wearing that little cap, the little golfer's cap.
Which I gotta say, great look.
The
Great
flavor
look.
text on this is great. I really like that.
Yeah, where did I find my horned friend? Now there's a story worth telling.
That's fantastic.
So and maybe that's what it is, right? Like it's
Mhm.
Grixis and Jund, Hey.
Yeah.
Yeah,
could
maybe
be.
it's that character, but the card itself just makes tokens, right? It doesn't make
Yeah.
the legendary card. So I mean that's actually like a cool little shout there.
Yeah, it'll be
Yeah,
interesting to see.
we can get to the next card. Let's do this.
Yeah.
All right. So the next card that we have here, this is actually the hybrid card. So we have EVELYN, the Covetous, 2 colorless hybrid blue black mana, hybrid black red. Legendary creature, vampire rogue, 2/5 with flash. Whenever this card or another vampire enters a battlefield under your control, exile the top card of each player's library with a collection counter on it. This next part of text is actually pretty important, the way it's worded. Once each turn, you may play a card from exile with a collection counter on it. If it was exiled by an ability you controlled, and you may spend mana as though it were mana of any color to cast it. Hearsay was actually talking about cards that we put into exile and being able to recast them later. And we actually get a card the next day. Pretty cool.
Yeah.
I mean, I actually think this card's really good. It has flash. Anytime a card has flash, I'm like, yeah, this
Flash
card's
is
like
good.
a lot better. Yeah.
Yeah, flash is good because it allows you to do so much more. Like, okay, I have 5 mana untapped, and you're thinking like, what can that be? Is it remove 2 removal spells? Is it like invoke? Like what could that 5 mana be? And now like this is essentially, this could be all black mana because it's the hybrid, is right. So this could go into invoke.
Yep. The black-white mid-range decks will like this card, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and I think you're right. Being able to flash it is huge. Being able to flash in a 2/5 body into combat is very real. Like that's a big blocker that your opponent needs to worry about. And it's got Tybalt's Plus on it effectively, where where you're drawing 2 cards, and you only get to play one of them each turn, but that's okay. But it's whenever EVELYN or another vampire enters the battlefield. So I think there's probably a Rakdos vampire deck out there that's waiting to be had. Maybe an Alchemy. I don't know about in standard, but that wants this card in it in a big way.
You can play a Blood Tithe Harvester.
You sure can.
You can play Florian. I think that there's the potential to have some cards that are vampires, and then just have this as just added value either way. You know what I mean? Just cards that are good, and then you know, all of a sudden you flash in your Evelyn, and then you know they wipe the board or something, and you flash this in, and then you cast like your Florian, and before you know it, you're drawing like a bunch of cards and
All right, guys.
staying in the
Mass
game.
Projections is back on the menu.
Yes, let's do it. Now you're speaking my language. Yeah, yeah. I think it's great. Well, the reason I mentioned Alchemy specifically was the City Stalker Connoisseur is incidentally a vampire as well. So yeah, that was my thought.
Ooh, that's actually a really good point. Yeah, see, there's so many like incidental vampires. I don't think it's necessarily like that you're, I mean, yeah, it's got the tribal flavor to it, but at the same time, you're just playing these good value cards that happen to be vampires. So the fact that this card exists, I feel like this is like the payoff that maybe Vampires was looking for, right?
Yeah.
All right. So yeah, definitely watch out for this card. I feel like it's definitely going to be a player in Standard, in Alchemy. We'll definitely see if that shows up. So our next card here, we have Arcane Bombardment. 4 colorless, 2 red enchantment. Whenever you cast your first instant or sorcery spell each turn, exile an instant or sorcery card at random from your graveyard. Then copy each card exiled with this card. You may cast any number of the copies without paying their mana cost. So essentially a storm enchantment. It's like a 1,000-year storm, but what if you like kept the cards under it, right?
Yeah.
How do you guys feel about this?
It's like Eye of the Storm, right?
Yes, 100%. Yeah, Eye of the Storm being the blue enchantment that when you cast whenever any player casts a spell, that isn't it that they get to cast whatever copy.
Yeah, I think then that player gets to cast it.
Yeah, the Eye of the Storm gets weird, and I think Arcane Bombardment's also going to get weird.
I think this. Yeah. I think this is. I don't think. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't think this is a constructed play. I think this is an EDH card. I think this screams EDH. But who knows? Like maybe this is gonna go in some like weird, funky Izzet deck that just outvalues the hell out of you.
Yeah. Well, and I'm gonna try to find the right shell for this because you better believe. I mean, it reminds me very much of Mirror March as just a 6-drop enchantment that does nothing when it first drops, and so like tapping out on turn 6 for this is gonna feel awful. And then on top of that, once you get to finally get some value, like okay, I cast my first instant sorcery, it then exiles a card from your graveyard at random. So you need to do some way to minimize the number of viable targets in your graveyard so you grab something good. You know, because if I rip some kind of 3-mana spell and this pulls a counter spell out of my graveyard, I'm gonna be pissed. You know, because that's awful. That's not what I want to see at all.
Or like imagine it if it rips your Memory Deluge and it doesn't work because it's mana spent.
Yeah, exactly. Because when you free cast Memory Deluge, it just does nothing. Yeah, exactly. So there are going to be some really bad. There's going to be some awful feels with this one, unless you build your deck specifically with Arcane Bombardment in mind. But if you're building your deck specifically with Arcane Bombardment in mind, you're not building your deck to be efficient and win the game. And that's ultimately the Jank Masters, conundrum, is my goal to actually win the game, because if so I need to not play this card. If the goal is to like do something weird and goofy and explosive that's going to work maybe 10% of the time, Arcane Bombardment's where it's at. But let's be honest, if you're trying to actually win a game of Magic, this isn't the way to do it.
Yeah, at least in like the standard type of like competitive environment. I think probably just for EDH, this is where you're gonna see it. It really does seem like an explosive card. I mean, it's a mythic, it has the mythic feel. It's just
it's one of those, it's definitely gonna be like it does nothing, holy frig, I'm comboing off like nuts.
Yeah, actually it's funny, I went up and I had a match against one of my viewers not too long ago. Actually, I think it was that this morning? Anyway, time flies, it's weird. Anyway, where they used Wizard's Spellbook, which was another one of those that did that same kind of deal where it would exile cards from your graveyard and then you can roll a d20, and if you hit certain rolls you can, if you hit a nat 20, you get to copy everything you've exiled with it. They didn't hit the nat 20 on me, but they were able to use it to effectively give everything in their graveyard flashback with this kind of threat that it might pop off. And they were in a really hard control deck, and so they were able to stymie what I was trying to do and then get a ton of value off Wizard Spellbook, which was great. It wasn't the most efficient deck out there, but it worked against me, and it was really fun to watch. And so I can see Arcane Bombardment working in something similar to something like that, where you have a ton of control elements in the early game, and then you find some way to maybe use in older formats like Escape to minimize what's in your graveyard, or I don't know if there are ways to exile cards in your graveyard for value, then maybe you can take advantage of that to minimize the viable targets for Arcane Bombardment, so you have some control over what gets exiled. But at the end of the day, it's going to need to be a very strong control deck so you can get up to this.
Definitely gonna have some board wipes, some Anger of the Gods.
Yep. And then it's a kind of double-edged sword, because how do you choose to win the game? Because if you have a bunch of board wipes and you accidentally, they end up under Arcane Bombardment, you're going to be wiping the board a lot, which may be a good thing, but what's your win con? Approach the Second Sun? I mean, like,
yeah.
What are you building to? Anyway.
So our next card here, we have Maestros Initiate, 2 colorless and a black for a 3/1 human citizen. 4 colorless and then hybrid, blue, red. Exile Maestros Initiate from your graveyard, draw 2, then discard a card. We're actually going to see this a lot on a few cards that we talked today, which is the draw 2, discard a card. Yeah, I just really like this card for limited. Decent common.
Yeah, this is just limited. We can move on.
Yeah, just a decent common.
Well, everything that you said about Skyclave Shade works with Maestro's Initiate, and you get value in the graveyard. So yeah, but it costs 3. So yeah, not necessarily constructed playable, but great for limited. Agreed. Yeah.
All right. So our next card here, we have Professional
Don't worry,
Face
I like
Breaker.
Players. I do. I'm no good at drafting. I suck at drafting so bad.
But we have Professional Face Breaker. 3 mana, so 2 colorless and a red for a 2/3. Menace, whenever one or more creatures you control deals combat damage to a player, create a treasure token. So it's not just once, right? 1 or more. Okay, it is just once. Okay.
It is just once.
Yeah.
Yeah, fortunately.
Then sacrifice a treasure, exile the top card of your library. You may play that card this turn. How do we feel about this card? Is this card good? Is it bad? I don't know how to feel about it, honestly.
I'm kind of on the fence on this one. This is definitely a card I gotta see played, because I've heard a lot of chatter that people are saying that this is kind of Dockside. Dockside Extortionist. Like, that's what people are saying. I'm like, I just don't. It doesn't have the same feel.
Yeah, it's not doing the same thing.
I think that's like, I've seen those comparisons as well, and I'm not saying anybody's wrong for saying, but I think this is Dockside's best friend. This is not this is not a redundant copy of Dockside, because the only thing that one of the things that sucks about treasures, like kind of the only downside, is just like having a lot of lands, when drawing into a lot of lands late in the game, they may not be valuable. But Professional Facebreaker can turn your treasures into impulsive draws that give you access to cards for a turn. So if you have treasure lying around, it can just become card draw. That, I think, is really where this card is insane. Like, that's where it gets nuts. I don't think the ability to create treasure tokens is particularly great when we have Reflection of the Mirror Breaker running around, Goldspan Dragon still everywhere. We have the Rakdos treasure package that's out there that's still doing stuff. Skullport Merchant, Kalane, Deadly Dispute. Those cards that are putting a ton of treasure tokens onto the field anyway. I mean, even Reckoner Bankbuster just incidentally just happens to poop out a treasure once you get to three activations. Like, treasures are everywhere. It's just part of the game now. And so being able to turn those into card draw, I think, is very powerful.
Yeah, definitely. I feel like this is another card that I feel like I'm probably going to end up being surprised on, where I'm not sure how to value it, or maybe I'm undervaluing it, and then you're right, later on, maybe in that Oni cult deck, the Anvil.
I feel like if it had haste,
it's probably pretty decent.
If it had haste instead of Menace, I'd be down.
That's fair.
But because it has Menace, I'm like, it's probably gonna get in.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people might look at this and think, oh, it fits into like a mono red aggro strategy, because then you can ramp. And I think you're right. If it had haste, it would fit into those strategies a lot better. But it's a 2/3 for 3 instead of being, let's say, a 3/2 or 3/3. I mean, Menace is nice. It's going to help you, connect more often. But to your point, it's not going to be pressuring the life total early. And that is definitely a problem.
Yeah, I feel like it's more like a 2 of, right? Like the Stormseeker, I think, is still the best.
Red,
like one of the best red 3 drops. Yeah.
Totally.
So, and this is just like a good, if we need to, we can either sideboard it or main deck it to just keep getting some gas later if we happen to have like some cards that generate some treasures for us. So interesting rare. Yeah. We're definitely gonna see how it plays out in the formats. So our next card, pretty interesting counterspell we have here. Make Disappear, a colorless and a blue for an instant, casualty 1. As you cast a spell, you may sacrifice a creature power 1 or greater. When you do, you copy it. Counter target spell unless its controller pays 2. So essentially, your first copy just outright counters the card for 2. And then, if you kind of get your second copy going, then, maybe like the mid to late game, that making them pay 4 mana for their spell could end up being like pretty important. How do you guys feel about this?
I like this card. I think it's a good counter spell. I'm it sounds gross coming out of my mouth because I don't play control, but yeah, I think this is good. And I mean, if you just have any 1 power or even like higher creature that you don't want, like say like a hermit, like a hermit just can only counter a non-creature and they pay 3. But if you're like, all right, I don't need the hermit right now, sack the hermit. Now you pay 4, and I'm countering any spell versus just a non-creature. I think the card is good. I do think it's good. I do think it's a missed opportunity. I think they should have named it Now You Don't, and then in the flavor text was Now You See Me. But that's just me, Wizards. I definitely think it should have been like Now You See Me, Now You Don't.
That's pretty good. I like that actually.
Yeah, I think that's a missed opportunity there, Wizards.
Yeah, I mean, this card is Quench with upside. Like,
yeah.
And there were some decks that were more than happy to play Quench back when that was legal. So in Standard, that is. So I think we're going to see it. I think it is going to find a home in a couple of different decks. It's not amazing, but it's an early tempo play that can go a long way. If you can hit somebody's wedding announcement or a Seeker's Chariot with this, you're feeling really good. And also, hearsay to your point, it can target any spell. So
any spell,
it's not limited to non-creature, not limited to 2 creatures.
It's 2 mana and it's any spell. Like I think that just makes it a good counter spell. I mean, like this is just good. Like this is gonna replace Sock Coming. Even though Sock Coming kind of avoids the discarding, but like this is just a good counter spell. Like all in all, this is just a good counter spell.
I like it. I think the Deadly Dispute decks definitely got a lot of firepower in this set, and there's going to be a lot of different options for them to choose from.
For sure.
And this could end up being maybe like a 2 of where, you just have like your tempo play counterspell that has some flexibility early, and some flexibility in the middle of the game.
Yeah, and even like I see this in like so where I see this in is in a U-White control list, and how I see it is we have what's the full card's name? It's Revelry. Is it Sunset Revelry?
Yes. The white card that kind of gets you ahead.
It basically gives you if you have more creatures, it gives you 2 creatures. If you have more cards, it gives you a card. If you have less life, it gains you 4 life, I think. So like that card's really good in that control list, being like I create you a blocker, and then now it's gonna be sack fodder for you to counter a target spell. So
yeah,
like could be really good.
That's awesome.
Definitely. All right. So our next card here, we have actually a somewhat exciting card. I know that HamHox and Hearsay definitely talked me more into this card, and it does pack more of a punch. So we have a 2 colorless and a green for Fight Rigging. It is an enchantment. Hideaway 5. So when a discard enters the battlefield, look at your top 5 cards of your library. Put one of those cards into exile, the rest in a random order on the bottom of your library. At the beginning of combat on your turn, put a +1/+1 counter on target creature you control. Then, if you control a creature with power 7 or greater, you may play the exiled card without paying its mana cost. How do you guys feel about this card?
Oh man, I'm pretty high in this card. This card isn't hard to get 7 power. I know like a lot of people are like, oh man, 7 power is pretty ridiculous and blah 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 blah. But like we have cards that are cheap that are pretty big. Like I was saying, we have Egon. Is it Egon of Death?
Egon, God of Death. Yep.
God of Death. That's right. 6/6 Death Touch. Literally, you can go turn 3. You go Egon. Turn 4, Fight Rigging. You look at the top 5. You put a counter on Egon, and now you get to cast that spell for free. It's a 2-for-1, and you get to swing with a 7/7 Death Touch. Like, I think this card is pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, Egon is definitely like the ideal scenario, but in older formats, there's Rotting Regisaur running around still. We also have the Demogoth Woe Eater, the Demogoth Titan, all of which could fit in the same deck because they're all green-black. You
Yeah.
know, so we're definitely looking at a green-black situation, in my opinion. I think that fits beautifully. I don't know that Fight Rigging would fit really well in like the traditional green aggro list that we've kind of seen
No,
nowadays because, yeah,
it
the
needs support.
creatures.
It needs another color. Like
Yeah.
Gruul and Golgari, I think is where this card is gonna really shine.
Yeah. Yeah, you want to have a creature that's fairly big from the get-go to really take advantage of this. Also, come to think of it, Unnatural Growth. And although that's a 4 mana or a 5 mana do nothing enchantments, and this is a 3 mana potentially do nothing enchantment. So maybe you don't want those in the same deck. That's a lot of enchantments that
And like I was saying too,
yeah.
like, you know, we have cards like the Luminarch Aspirant. That is a creature that's pumping you up. This is an enchantment for 1 more mana that's gonna pump up a creature, and you get to dig 5 deep, find a card. Like, still, I think this. I'm really high on this card. I think this card's definitely going to see constructive play. I don't know if I don't think we'll see it in mono green, but I definitely think we'll see it in Gruul, some variations of Golgari. I think we'll definitely see it in Naya, because like this is like Cabaretti is just waiting for this card.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, and we just have so many counters flying around. Stuff's growing out of control. Yeah, it's not going to be hard to pop this off. And actually, there's a card that we're going to be talking about a little bit later that could fit into that deck quite nicely as well, which I'm looking forward to getting into. So,
yeah, I got another card that kind of helps as well with Kamigawa, where it ends up helping with like your modified creature count. So,
yeah,
getting some counters around, never bad, especially when you have some synergies with it for sure. And of course, getting the cast a card for free is, we all know, is good.
Absolutely.
Right. So our next card here, we have.
I can't not. I know it's not, but I'm a chef, so I know how I want to read this card, and I can only read it as cornmeal. Like, that's literally how I see it, and I know it's Cormelia, but I'm like, it's cornmeal.
So we have CORMELA, Glamour Thief, a colorless blue, black, red for a 2/4 vampire rogue. Legendary creature, has haste, a colorless, tap it, add blue, black, red, spend this mana only to cast instants or sorcery spells. When this card dies, return up to 1 target instant or sorcery card from your graveyard to your hand. I don't know how to feel about this. Maybe it just costs a little bit too much mana, you know?
No, man, I think this card is nuts. I think this is gonna be like, I see it as being like a 2 of in some of the Grixis lists, like some of the spell slingers. Man, me just stuttering away. But I definitely think, again, I feel like today is the day of Commander. I feel like everyone is getting their Commander cards because this is a bonkers Commander.
Yeah, I'm inclined to agree with that, and I think it really depends. When you're working in a Grixis list, how did you come to Grixis?
Yeah.
Is it Spellslinger and you're splashing black? Because in that case, yeah, I think Cormela is great. Are you playing more like Rakdos aggro with a pinch of blue for flavor? Then probably not. You know, you're probably not going to get enough value. But being able to drop Cormela down, and if you have additional mana, just ramping you immediately because of the haste is pretty cool. So yeah, she kind of gives a rebate, if you will, on our casting cost there, as long as you have an instant sorcery to back it up. And the fact that, I mean, the death trigger is meaningful. You know, being able to recurse, being able to take advantage of your graveyard is a big deal. Like, it is. And so I think that's decent. I wish her stats were a little bit better. 2/4 for 4 is kind of meh. But she is also a vampire and a rogue, which are 2 creature types that are very, very meaningful. So all in all, like, solid. I'm not mad to see her, but at the same time, I don't know what deck I want to put her in. Does that make sense?
That's fair.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll definitely see if this card has like some standard alchemy or historic applications. It seems fine. I mean, you do get something back when it dies and it ramps you. So you're right, if you are that spell slinger deck, if you're trying to go big with some spells, then this card actually helps you get there pretty quick. Like,
yeah,
you can cast your Magna Opus, off of it.
You can cast your Magna Opus off of it. You can cast extra turns. If you guys don't know that this comes on 4, turn 5, you get, what is it, 1? So if you're turn 4, you play a land. So you have 5 mana, take the 1, you're at 7 mana, so that's your extra turn spell on turn 5.
Yeah, you can
That's
definitely
pretty
still play Alrund's Epiphany in Alchemy. So
Yeah.
Um,
Grixis
yeah, you
Epiphany.
might be able to ramp into it. Yeah, Grixis Epiphany.
Well, or Alchemist Gambit in standard, you can cleave it at that point.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah, on turn 5, so pretty good.
Yeah,
No.
interesting card. We'll definitely see where it ends up having the most impact. So this next card is actually pretty interesting. It's an uncommon, but it definitely has some interesting text on it. So 2 colorless, red, green, 5/4. It's a Rhino Warrior. Security, RHOX. You may pay a green and a red rather than pay this spell's mana cost. Spend only mana produced by treasures to cast it this way. So you can cast it early or cast it as like a, one of your dual spells in a turn. For the red and the green if you have some treasures around. Other than that, it's just a 4 mana 5/4. It's crazy that Magic's come a long way where, we're like, yeah, 4 mana 5/4, and it's like, doesn't really do anything. You know what I mean? It's like,
it's a 5/4, but if it comes out as like, so like I was saying earlier today, like if you spend the treasure mana on the Gruul cost here, we do have cards like the Painter that creates treasures, and then if a creature comes in with a paid treasure, it gets a counter. So this using 2 treasures is coming in as a 7/6 for 2. Yeah, now we're in the realm of talking. And then if you're running cards like Hot Spring, like Invigorated Hot Springs, now it has haste.
Yeah, that's pretty fantastic. Well, and if you got fight rigging just sitting there, you're also free casting stuff. Yeah,
and now you're free casting. Or we talked about OMNISEER yesterday. OMNISEER likes this card too.
Yep. Yeah, he sure does.
Funny enough, we're wearing the same clothes.
It's very similar. Yeah. The Security RHOX is rocking a similar suit. Yeah. I do love the flavor of this card
OMNISEER like killed the security guard and took his suit.
Maybe. Yeah.
Like just like straight up like Terminator, I like your coat.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I love the flavor of this card too. The idea that if you pay your security force up front, they'll show up sooner. I think that's fun. I like that. And at the end of the day, being able to spend 2 mana on a 5/4. Just 2 mana on a 5/4. You not on turn 2 in most situations. Although this also is a great punishment for the counter spell that creates the treasure tokens if your opponent doesn't I'm trying to remember the name of it.
Offer you can't refuse.
The offer you can't refuse. If your opponent hits you with an offer you can't refuse, you get free treasure tokens, and you can just rip it. So if you try to cast out a spell, they hit you with that. All of a sudden, you could just jam a security RHOX, and all of a sudden they now have a 5/4 they're staring down that you need to worry about. I think that's cool. Again, Magical Christmas is that kind of scenario, but it could come up, and that's fun.
Well, you love your Magical Christmas land, so I'll let you live there. It's pretty cold there.
It is a little chilly. I got to bundle up a little bit, but yeah, I think the card design is really cool. And the first time I saw this, I was like, it's a 5/4 for 2. Like Questing Beast as a 5/5 for 3 was bad enough. But then I realized
it had haste, vigilance, and death touch.
No, I'm sorry, not Questing Beast. Was it Lovestruck Beast?
Yeah,
Lovestruck Beast. Lovestruck Beast. Yeah, sorry about that. You're right. Questing Beast was a whole other can of worms. But no, so I was just thinking like a 5/4 for 2. Like we've seen a 5/5 for 3 be amazing. And so I'm thinking a 5/4 for 2 is going to be nuts, but you can't just rip it on turn 2. And your situation has to be perfect if you're going to try to cast it out on turn 3, and you have to give up any ramp that you've been working on by sacrificing the treasures to it. So I think it's a reasonable downside. I think the card's just a rock solid card.
I mean, in Historic, you can kind of ramp it out because you can go turn 1, strike it rich, turn 2, Innkeeper. You had 2 treasures. And then turn 2, you drop down the RHOX, and you gained a life. And you have a 1/1 and a 5/4.
Gilded Goose creates food. Never mind, just kidding. I was thinking that was a treasure token for a second. But no, you're right. Yeah, Striker Rich is a great card.
Great card.
You can also play Kalane. If you have Kalane out, then this becomes a 7/6 for 2 mana.
Incredible.
So, I mean, that's pretty good if you're playing it even on turn 4. I mean, 7/6 for 2 mana is fine. I don't really see anything wrong with that.
Pretty good.
Yeah.
Well, I hope you have removal because I'm coming in.
Definitely some stats. My thing is so I compare a lot of vanilla creatures and like some things that maybe like they do in comparison to like Tarmogoyf type things where it's like, how good is just a 7/6? you know, it does just die. So like you're using some resources to kind of get somewhere early. I feel like, yeah, this card is just like asking for you to just be as aggressive as you can be, you know?
Yeah, and I mean Reggie's what? What is Reggie? A 7/5?
It's a 7/6, I believe.
It's a 7/6.
Yeah.
7/6, and it's a 7/6 with downside. This would be a 7/6 with no downside.
Yeah, off of like
Yeah.
the Kalane treasures. Yeah, so
Yeah.
I mean that's definitely something to watch out for. It's an interesting card. And
Just know if you in historic, if you see Striker Rich and you see Clean, you're in trouble.
Yes.
Yeah, pretty much.
Strap in, it's happening. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, so our next card here, we have OMNISEER Arbiter. 4 colorless, 2 blue, 5/4 creature avatar, flying. Whenever this card enters the battlefield or attacks, draw 2, then discard a card. Whenever you discard a card, target creature an opponent controls gets -X/-0 until end of turn, where X is the number of different mana values among cards in your graveyard. Quite a little bit of some text there. I actually...
This is a mofo for nothing of a mythic. I know, like this is
Yeah,
this isn't even
I don't
this
even
isn't
know,
even like a
like-
reanimator target. Like this is nothing. I don't know.
I mean,
I
yeah.
see this card. I'm not high on it. It like, does it really need to be a mythic at 6 mana? Like, is this
No
like
flash. It needs flash.
Yeah.
Where's my
and
flash?
no crazy ability. Like this is, I don't know.
Yeah. It feels like a setup piece, but it's a 6-drop.
Yeah.
That's like such a good way to put it, actually.
You know, that's what I see there. I mean, that like looting plus effect of drawing 2 cards and discarding 1 is good. I mean, I like it, but is it good enough on a 5/4/6 drop? Even with flying, I don't see.
Yeah, 4 toughness is kind of like
that's
the
a
fact that this
huge
dies a
bummer.
Thundering Rebuke is like weak, right?
That hurts. Yeah.
I don't know. It's a weird mythic that, like, it's doing a lot of things. But are all those things really that great? Like, I don't think that they really are. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, flying's cool, but it's a 6 mana card, and it's just a 5/4. I mean, you know, most of the other text on it, you know, I feel like it's got to be doing something bomby. Like, what are you doing? Are you casting this, or are you saving up to cast Jin Kataxis for 1 more mana?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Right.
Jin Kataxis pretty much can just outright win you the game if you get to untap with it. This card, you're like, yeah, value. You know what I mean? But you also spent, like, it's like the question I asked you guys yesterday about Vivian. Is this card worth 6 mana?
Yeah.
And this card, no. I don't think this card is.
I agree. I think if it was a 6/6, I'd be like, this is an okay rare. But even that, I'm not happy with it as a mythic. Yeah, I'm definitely not going to be reanimating these anytime soon. I mean, unless a crazy weird limited deck arises where I get my hands on this, but that's the only situation where I could see that.
Yeah, we could be wrong. It's a mythic. You know, it could be a mythic for a reason. It draws cards. Drawing cards is always good. I mean, you get to play it, you draw 2. Yeah, you pitch a card, that's fine. Next turn, if you attack with it, another 2 cards. So I guess that's maybe why it's mythic. Maybe we're all missing something here. Let us know in the comments, but I don't really feel like this card's that powerful overall for the mana cost.
I
and
definitely think
stats.
it's worth a mythic wild card. So if I open in a pack, yippee. But you won't see me crafting this anytime soon.
I think the best part about this, so when I first read it, I thought, okay, so whenever it enters the battlefield or attacks, you draw 2 cards, discard a card, and then you get to like defang one of your opponent's things by giving it -X/-0, which could be a decent number depending on how big your yard is. But then I realized it does say whenever you discard a card, target creature and opponent controls -X/-0. So that is relevant. It's not just when this creature triggers. So if you're in an older format and you hit a Faithless Looting, you get to hit this on 2 of their creatures. You know, that's not bad. Like, and so you're in a situation where if you're doing a lot of looting effects or you're doing a lot of, you say, conniving, where you're discarding a lot of cards,
It's snowing.
It's snowing. I know. I'm trying to find the best. I'm trying to find the best
Christmas
situation.
land.
No, but I mean, connive is an ability where you have to discard a lot of cards.
Yeah.
And so you could get a lot of triggers on this thing. So, but even then, all you're doing is reducing the power of your opponent's team. You might reduce them all to 0, so your opponent like just straight up loses in combat, which is kind of nice. But you're not touching their toughness at all, so they might still be able to block your team.
Yeah.
It is
I don't
until your
know.
next turn, though. So, I mean, you really could set up a scenario maybe where you're stalling your opponent and then you're like, yeah, 5 damage. Yeah, draw some cards. You know, I don't know.
Yeah.
It's a 6-drop. It's a mythic. We'll
It's
see
a
if it gets
6-drop mythic
played.
5/4 flying with nothing. Like yeah.
Couple paragraphs of text that may not be
I
relevant.
got my coat on. Bought my ticket. I'm leaving Magical Christmas Land.
I'm just saying, I like connive results in discarding a lot of cards. So that's
Yeah.
I think the
It's fair. 100%.
scenario for this card. I'm still not saying it's good. I'm just saying that's the best spot for it.
I know I'm going to be on your channel, and you're going to brew this, and it's going to be good, and I'm going to be pissed.
Exactly. Yeah, you're gonna challenge me to like a best.
He's gonna put the fucking
card. Just like
the
what is
punch
happening?
card. He's gonna put the punch card in it, whatever it's called, fight rigging or whatever.
Yeah, exactly. I'm
And
gonna
then
fight
you're gonna
rigging
go
you're the arbiter. It's gonna happen. Just watch.
It's drawing so many cards all the time.
Oh my goodness.
All right, so our next card here is an uncommon, pretty interesting card. Grisly Sigil, 1 black sorcery, casualty 1. Choose target creature or planeswalker if it was dealt non-combat damage this turn. This card deals 3 damage to it and you gain 3 life. Otherwise, it deals 1 and you gain 1. So HearSay actually kind of turned us around a little bit more on this card.
I think this is the best card released today. Like today, out of the spoilers.
Okay.
Which is nice because I appreciate your thoughts on this because I remember when I first saw it, I was thinking, meh, it's fine, but it's just so situational. But it is only 1 mana, which is nice.
It's only 1 mana, and so like there's cards in the 2 mana slot in a lot of decks that are just really hard to kill. This just kills them all because it's gonna do 4 damage. And where you guys aren't seeing like where I'm coming from, we have cards like Shambling Gas that you want to sacrifice. We have cards like Eye Twitch where you want to sacrifice. So this being able to sacrifice for 1 mana, it copies. So the first one's going to go off and do 1 damage and you're going to gain 1 life. But then the next card is going to hit and do 3 damage and you gain 3 life. So essentially this is a 1 mana deal 4, gain 4.
Yeah, and you can even divide those targets up, which is pretty great.
So like I think this is a pretty sweet removal spell. And Hollywood, we've talked about this a couple times. Like, you know, that troublesome 4 toughness is really hard to kill in other colors when you don't have just straight up kill spells. So this being able to be that 4 damage spell, I think is pretty good.
Yeah, and I think this is gonna snipe a lot of planeswalkers.
This is gonna snipe a lot. This is killing Lulz. This is killing Wanderers. This is killing Kaidos. This is killing planeswalkers.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, if they try to do like a wander in the middle of your combat and then post combat, you can just do this and potentially grab a couple things. That seems really good to me.
Yeah.
And you're gaining some life, so it's an interesting card because we haven't seen too many like 1-drop removal spells. We talked about Strangle yesterday, which is the lightning bolt for creatures or planeswalkers, and we're seeing another like 1-drop removal spell here. I think it's really interesting. I definitely see a lot more of the upside now that we've kind of like talked about it a little bit, where yeah, I mean, if you get that 1 mana lightning helix onto a planeswalker or creature, seems pretty good.
Absolutely.
So I mean, yeah, definitely like even like a draft type card, I think for sure you can sacrifice some of your fodder, like a token, anything like that, and then kill one of your opponent's best threats. So I think you're going to be seeing this card. I'm not sure what number it could be at.
This is going to be a 4 of, guaranteed. 100% this will be a 4 of. Just because the gain life, like not only are you killing something, but you're gaining life. You're coming back out of the ditches. You know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely. Gaining life is like huge. Like killing something and gaining life, like staying in the game, or even like accruing more value like that. Like that's just really solid overall in like the mid-range game plan where
and
you
even
will
think
end
of
up
like,
seeing this.
Let's go to historic and think of cards like Veto. Whenever you gain life, you deal that much damage. So now I'm doing 4. I'm killing something, I'm gaining 4 and dealing 4 to you.
All right, and our next card here that we have on the menu today is called Cut Your Losses. So this is 4 colorless, 2 blue for a sorcery, casualty 2, a rare. Target player mills half their library, rounded down. I don't know. This card could. I don't know. Mill is still a thing.
Mill's a thing, but
6 mana too much, you think?
No. So the thing is, 6 mana isn't too much, I guess. I don't think we'll see this in standard or alchemy.
Okay.
I think we see this in historic, and I think this is going to be a pretty good bomb, because in historic we have Bruvac, which is if any opponent was to mill a card, they mill double. So this
wow.
is just a one hitter, just says mill your entire library.
That's interesting.
Yeah, if you've been enjoying Bruvac with Fleet Swallower and you thought Xander gave you some more tools, no, this just makes it so much easier.
Yeah,
I
I mean, like,
completely agree.
in historic, you have Bruvac, and it's kind of a hard setup. Not even, I won't say a hard setup, but it's there's some hoops you got to jump through, because you need Maddening Cacophony, and you need that 2-mana creature that copies a spell with 2 CMC or less. Was it, is it Storm something?
Oh.
You know what I'm talking about. But you need, basically, you put that out, it copies the next spell with 2 CMC or less. Then you Maddening Cacophony, and then you mill their entire
Is that
library
like Dual
out.
Strike?
It's not Dual Strike. It's like
It's
what's it
Seagate
called?
something or other for the
Yeah,
legendary.
Seagate Stormcaller.
I gotcha. Yeah, yeah.
Stormcaller, that's the one.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's the one. So with that, you need Bruvac, Seagate Stormcaller, and then Maddening Cacophony to mill their entire deck out. This, you just need Bruvac and cut your losses. Game over.
Yeah, it does make it a lot easier. The only downside is, like, this card's just a little bit more expensive, so you're putting yourself in a situation where you have to play your creature first and then potentially follow this up on the next turn.
Yeah.
So
I see this like being like a probably like an is it list of like just trying to treasure your way through it, like ramp your way into it, and then just go boom. All right, mill your library out. Because I know, like, in Modern, it was like that, because you had, like, Fraying Sanity and the other card that if you're whatever you mill that many cards, and you just, like, rip through their library.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I think this card is definitely, I mean, in a combo situation like that, awesome. Like, that's a great setup. Yeah, I think you're right. In standard, it's just not going to work, and in limited, I think it's like not even part of the discussion at all. It being limited by.
In limited, though, in limited, it could be a funny thing, because you like, what do you have? 40 cards in your deck. So I mean, milling 20, or not milling 20, you're milling half the library.
Yeah, you'd be milling like 13, 14.
You're probably milling
like
13 or 14 cards. So that's still nothing to snuff at. Like, that's pretty much
this
like,
card is good. Yeah, if you sacrifice like whatever 2-drop you got laying around or any 2-power creature, I mean, you pretty much hit them for like 18 cards. I mean, that's most of their deck gone, depending where the game's at. That seems fine to me. I don't really see anything wrong with it. It could end up being that this is just like a random bomb. Mill's just good and limited.
Yeah, fair enough.
All right, so up next we have Join the Maestros. I think this is potentially just like a limited card. I think it's just it costs a little bit too much. So Join the Maestros. 4 colorless and a black sorcery, casualty 2. Create a 4/3 black ogre warrior creature token. So essentially, if you copy it, you get 2 of those tokens instead. I was looking at this earlier. I was like, wow, that seems really good and limited. 5 mana. Once again, sacrifice like your 2-drop, something that just has 2 power. You get 2 4/3s. I mean, that seems pretty good.
It's pretty good. I think this is a limited card. I always think of like sacrificing like a wolf token. I'm like, oh wait a minute, wrong format, wrong set. But like, I think about this card is definitely limited. But what I'm curious about is, obviously we're gonna get an ogre in the set. Like, we're gonna get an ogre. We're gonna get an ogre warrior in the set, and I wonder what. Like, obviously they're gonna be in the Maestro, so I'm wondering what that card's gonna be now.
Yeah, we could see one. It's gonna be pretty interesting. Yeah, this could be the character, just like you stated earlier, with the Death Touch Haste card. I'm sorry, I can't remember what it's called right now, but we could end up seeing like the actual legendary creature that goes along with this.
Yeah.
So that'll be kind of interesting.
Yeah.
But overall, mostly just like a limited card, and
yeah,
I think a pretty decent one.
Limited, pretty good card. This is a limited, pretty good card.
So we have a reprint here in Fairy Vandal, colorless blue, 1/2, Fairy Rogue, Flash, Flying. Whenever you draw your second card each turn, put a counter on it. So this card definitely fits into the conniving theme, right?
Yeah,
I would say it's not conniving though, because it doesn't discard it. You just draw.
No, but whenever you draw your second, connive is the draw discard ability. So every time you connive, you draw
that's right. Yeah.
So I think it's pretty good. I mean, we've seen it before. I don't know if it's going to be better now, It was good. We remember it in that cycling deck. Sometimes you played it.
Yep.
We'll see. I mean, it's a 2-drop. It has flash, and if Connive ends up being a player, I mean, I really like just whatever 1-drop playing this on 2, and then the Rafine. I'm sorry if I'm saying
Yeah,
that wrong.
Rafine.
Yeah, but I mean, at the
cheerleader,
2-drop though, like, are you really gonna play this over the Shredder?
That's actually very true, but you could supplement it, right? Maybe you play a couple of these to kind of make
I
sure
mean,
you curve
maybe,
out
but
all
the
the time.
Shredder's like the Shredder turns into a 2/4 after you draw. Like, it's a case of beer after you draw your next card.
Yeah, I mean the shredder appropriately gets shredded. Yeah.
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 We'll
But like,
see
but
if
like,
this
but
makes
like,
it.
but like, maybe.
Yeah.
I mean, Flash is pretty strong. Flash is
Yeah.
very strong.
Yeah, we'll see if
Yeah.
it makes it in there. It's just a reprint. A lot of the time, we don't really see these cards get played anyways, so.
Yeah. The other thing about it is uncommon. So if you're on a budget, it's a budget alternative, whereas the
Yeah.
shredder is a rare. So that's one of those things. Like,
Yeah.
it's just something to keep in mind.
Yeah, that's a good point, too. So we have one more card here on the spoilers. And that's actually a card that I think is, like, somewhat decent. Definitely a good limited card. We'll see if it makes its way to Constructed. So we have Snooping NEWSIE. Blue-black, human rogue, 2/2. Whenever this card enters the battlefield, mill 2. As long as there are 5 or more mana values among cards in your graveyard, this card gets +1/+1 and has lifelink. So maybe a little bit harder to get overall of this ability, but I think that in limited, or if you do try it out in Construct, I think, like, still having like a 2-mana 3/3 lifelink later in the game still seems fine, and the fact that you have a mill strategy could end up being a plus.
Yeah.
Yeah. You had me at mill 2. That's all I need.
You had me at +1/+1 on lifelink. I mean, I still think there's not enough things that have lifelink that makes it relevant. So having lifelink is just huge because you can just get beat in the face and you're just like, I just need a little bit of life to survive. I just need like 3 life, and this is gonna be a good blocker and gain you 3 life. I've seen too many games where I've been down at 1 life and come back by just being able to gain life off Meat Hook.
Oh, sure. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
That's a good point.
We'll go ahead and see where this card ends up getting played.
Yeah.
Interesting comment for sure. All right. So let me go ahead and we'll just go ahead and give the page one more refresh here to see if there's anything new. And it doesn't look like there is. So definitely appreciate you sticking around till the end of the video. We're also going to have a gameplay video today where I take the deck that I think you should be playing tomorrow in the Slice of Alchemy event, so definitely stay tuned for that as well. As always, like the video, subscribe to the channel, and leave a comment down below. It'd be greatly appreciated. Definitely check out Hearsay and HamHox. Where can we find you at?
You can find me at twitch.tv/HearSayTTV, Monday to Thursday. You all know the hours.
Yep, and I'm at twitch.tv/HamHox42, Monday through Friday, starting at 7 a.m. Eastern time.
So definitely come pop in and hang out with us anytime that we're streaming. I stream during the weekdays as well. So thanks again. As always, don't forget there's a tournament this Sunday, free to play. All these links are going to be in the description below. And I do thank you again, and I hope that you stay cheesy. See you next time.